Breaking news coming out in the last 48 hours that there has been an attack on the U.S. food supply that was thwarted by the FBI. This has been confirmed, and also we are now hearing that as a result of this and other things that have happened in the last 48 hours, that President Donald Trump has announced a executive action to stop inbound flights from other foreign nationalists, specific ones coming out. Now, I'm going to share with you the video footage and the articles so you can see it for yourself. Take a look at the latest headlines with me. You can see here, Chinese researchers' alleged plot to smuggle crop-killing fungus into the United States is an attack on the U.S. food supply, according to the feds. Like I said, I'm going to share with you the latest on this. So take a look. Here's another one coming out. This one coming out 2 days ago. U.S. FBI Director, China targets our food supply, putting American lives at serious risk. Here's another one coming out in the last 48 hours as well. Patel sounds the alarm as Chinese nationalists charged with smuggling agro-terrorism agent into the U.S. This is a direct threat. And as I mentioned to you as well, take a look at this coming out in the last 24 hours, restricting the entry of foreign nationals to protect the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. This is an executive action issued by President Donald Trump yesterday, as they are saying that we need to take care of our food supply, our people. We need to stop allowing people into this country that want to cause harm to the United States, and we're hearing that there was a target on the food supply. Now, if you're glad to see President Donald Trump doing this executive action, drop a 47 in the comments. If you think, no, this is not good, drop a 46 for the previous administration, which you're going to be seeing in the video footage, had a very different approach to their open border policy. President Donald Trump has locked things down significantly. The previous administration just kind of let people in very easily. And so a very different approach here. And now he's also restricting the entry of certain foreign nationalists as well. If you appreciate that, drop a 47 in the comments. And I'm going to get you caught up in the latest. Now, I've got a lot of video footage and articles. We're going to be going through this step by step here so you can see exactly what has unfolded. Also, we're hearing, as I mentioned, that this is one of the major threats right now, the concern of attacks in the United States on critical infrastructure systems, on food supply chains, water supply, transportation, you name it. We've been hearing these warnings for quite some time. And now, even today, in the last 48 hours, today is June 5th, 2025, we are live. We are hearing that there was an attempt, they believe an alleged attempt on poisoning or damaging U.S. food supplies to mess up our crops, our food, and to wreak havoc on American citizens not being able to have food here in the United States. So I'm going to go ahead and get you caught up on the latest. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, before we do me a quick favor. If you appreciate the updates, I'm going to put them on the screen, read right from them, share with you the video footage, hyperlink them down in the description, try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability here on the channel so that way you can see the updates, see the sources, the dates, know that this is the latest information. If you appreciate that, do me a favor, hit that like button. Sugar, thank you for the $2 super chat. I appreciate the generosity. Says Steve just got on. What did I miss? I'm going to get you caught up on the latest on this potential food supply attack that we're hearing was thwarted. And they are warning that there are foreign nationalists trying to enter the country and hit the United States' critical infrastructure systems. Now, like I said, if you appreciate all the updates, take a second, hit that like button. Helps out the channel a ton here on the YouTube platform. I appreciate it. Also, if you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I will keep you up to speed on everything. Now, also, in addition to that, wanted to mention for those of you that are interested, there's a lot going on with the world right now with uncertainty, and I wanted to share something very important with you, and that is American financing. Now, I wanted to share with you what they have available for you today before we dive into the footage. Now, they said that debt doesn't just show up one day, it builds little by little. Credit cards, car loans, medical bills, and then suddenly you're juggling payments, you're feeling stuck. But here's the good news, you're not stuck. You just need a reset. American Financing is here to help. They help homeowners like you every single day. They use your home's equity to roll that high interest debt into one simple affordable payment. They're saving homeowners an average of $800 a month. So if this is you, you might want to give them a call. No judgment, no pressure, just real solutions that put you back in control. So imagine being able to breathe again, to sleep again, knowing your future is yours to shape. It starts with one phone call. You can see on the screen here, it only takes 10 minutes to get started, and there are no upfront fees. So it costs nothing to find out how much you can save. So there's no reason to not give them a call. It's totally free to do so and see if they're going to be able to help you out. And if you start today, you may be able to delay your next 2 mortgage payments. American Financing salary-based consultants are ready to listen, and they're ready to help. Take back your peace of mind with American Financing, and call American Financing today at 866-890-7706. That's 866-890-7706. AmericanFinancing.net/Steve Ram. So again, thank you for making that available. If that is somebody like you that is interested, give them a call today. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the video footage so you can see exactly what is going on, as we have been receiving the warnings over the last 48 hours that Chinese nationalists, they are now being charged right now with smuggling in devastating biological pathogens into the United States. They're saying in an attempt to poison and damage U.S. food supply. Let's go ahead and take a look.
The FBI is sounding the alarm that our food supply is being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party, as 2 Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potential agro-terrorism weapon into the U.S.
This is really insane. Lucas Thomason joins us live in Washington with the details. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, guys. A Chinese researcher at the University of Michigan and her boyfriend have been accused of smuggling a biological pathogen into the United States that can cause devastating diseases in crops. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is a sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. I commend the FBI Detroit Division and our partners at CBP for stopping this biological threat before it could do real damage." Here's a photo of that fungus that was discovered at the Detroit airport in July. The small clumps of red plant material were discovered in these 4 plastic baggies tucked into a wad of tissues. According to court documents, the 34-year-old Chinese boyfriend intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew there were restrictions on importing them. He had hoped to continue his research at the University of Michigan lab. In a statement, the school says, quote, "It is important to note that the university has received no funding from the Chinese government in relation to research conducted by the accused individuals. We have and will continue to cooperate with federal law enforcement in its ongoing investigation and prosecution." And in Arizona, the state's Democratic governor is under fire for vetoing legislation that would have barred the Chinese government from owning land in the state. Arizona is home to a number of military bases, including Luke Air Force Base, home to fighter squadrons, including the primary training center for the F-35 stealth fighter jet. The Republican Senate Majority Leader in Arizona said, quote, "It is utterly insane that Arizona's top elected official would rather be an obstructionist against safeguarding our citizens from threats than sign legislation giving our state a fighting chance at proactively preventing attacks. Hobbs is a total disgrace." As we just saw in Russia, after Ukraine unleashed those drones against Russian air bases, destroying expensive bombers, military experts have long warned of China being able to do the same thing right here in the U.S., guys.
Hey, Lucas, do you know if President Trump has addressed this in executive orders with the Chinese building, buying land near military bases? Couldn't that be handled from Washington and just deny it?
Brian, there's talk that that's going to come in. And speaking to your last segment, there was also concern for years, of course, about Chinese nationals crossing the southern border in Arizona and, of course, Southern California, home to U.S. military bases. So it's a big issue.
Lucas, you said that they found it in July. Why are we just hearing about this?
Exactly. It was just unsealed yesterday, Ainsley. That's how everybody knew. In this
is it a reason why, Lucas, and you may not know this, so forgive me, is it a reason why this was sealed? Was it ruled under national security is why they sealed this? I mean, that's not typical for them to seal something of this magnitude as a threat.
Right. Lawrence, typically they're still investigating, so they're probably just following all the leads.
Roger that.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Lucas. They said it's a threat to national security, a violation of the law. And Kash Patel, who's head of the FBI, said the case. No, what's Kash Patel's FBI director. Case is sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. They say it's a fungus, and they say that it's a fungus that causes head blight, a disease of wheat, barley, maize, and rice, and is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses worldwide each year.
You mean a bioweapon from the Chinese? Have they ever done anything like that before?
Takes us back to COVID, right?
And it just also plays into why we can't have 150,000 Chinese students studying here, a lot of which were kids from party members. And if you come over and if you think, well, these are good kids, they're 18 years old, what harm are they? As long as their families are back home, they're under obligation to spy for their country. And yet we're training our enemy.
It's a naive view to not believe that they would cause us harm. And I also answer to your point about the FBI director. He did that interview last week with Brett Baier, and he said, what is the one thing that keeps you up at night? He said the Chinese. Mm-hmm. He was probably talking about things just like this that we just learned.
I'm Steve Ducey.
Wow, there you have it, you guys. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, they're saying that this was something that has taken place, and it has just been undisclosed right now in the last 48 hours. Take a look at these articles coming out on this. Chinese researchers' alleged plot to smuggle crop-killing fungus into the U.S. as an attack on our U.S. food supply. Let's take a look at this here. Now, you can see it says national security authorities and members of Congress are raising alarm over the alleged plot by two romantically involved Chinese researchers to smuggle samples of a dangerous crop-killing fungus into the United States. Young Quinn Jian, 33, a Communist Party loyalist and lab researcher at the University of Michigan who received Chinese government funding for her work, plotted the illicit transport of the pathogen with her boyfriend, Zhenyang Liu, 34, the FBI alleged. Now, Liu was caught at Detroit Metropolitan Airport last July after allegedly attempting to sneak packages of Fusarium graminearum into the country, the Fed said. This is an attack on the American food supply, one senior Trump administration official told the Post. Here's a picture of that individual that was taken into custody. And it says the fungus is already present in the United States, but if it was manipulated to become resistant to treatment or to spread more easily, it could have the potential to devastate American farms, one expert told the Post. The U.S. should be testing the fungus sample for any evidence that it's been tampered with, the experts added. Now, there are similar allegations that the virus that caused COVID-19 was enhanced by China's Wuhan Institute of Virology as a part of the U.S.-funded gain-of-function research of the naturally occurring SARS pathogen. China denies that COVID leaked from the lab, but U.S. intel agencies now say that appears to be the most likely cause of the pandemic. So I know a lot of people were speculating that that was the cause of it, that it was started in a lab in Wuhan. Let me know, did you think that? They're saying now, several years later, that they're saying that is the most likely probable cause after research. It says the CCP will use every tool in its warfare toolbox to cripple the United States and bring us to our knees. A pathogen like this, if successfully introduced into a crop, could inflict significant economic loss for the U.S. agricultural producers, the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford told the Post. Now, Senator Johnny Ernst said it appears the FBI may have intercepted a potential bioweapon. We are very fortunate that the Trump administration and federal law enforcement stopped this potential bioweapon before it compromised our nation's food supply. This is exactly why I have always said and will continue to say food security is national security. Between the latest bioweapon and China's highly concerning purchases of U.S. farmland around military bases, we must stay on guard against the threat from communist China in our own backyard. And here you can see a picture of what was confiscated of that fungus. Now, according to the feds, the Chinese couple discussed how they could smuggle this into the United States, a biological pathogen considered a potential agro-terrorism weapon capable of destroying crops and poisoning both livestock and humans, according to the criminal complaint filed in federal court in Michigan on Monday. Both Jian and Liu were charged Monday in a federal criminal complaint with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, and visa fraud. The bacteria infects wheat, barley, corn, and rice. When it does, it can devastate crops, one national security source who specializes in agriculture microbiology told the Post. The key question is if the bacteria strain being brought in has been modified to make it resistant to treatment or to make it more pathogenic. Now, the source added that it could be dangerous if the Chinese manipulated the strain, and that the federal investigators should have a genome sequence dome on the sample that Jian and Liu allegedly conspired to smuggle into the country. On July 27th of 2024, Liu, who works as a researcher at Jiang University in Hangzhou, arrived in Detroit on a Delta flight from Shanghai and was interviewed by Customs and Border Patrol agents about the purpose of her travels. Now, he claimed that he was in the United States to visit Jian, a lab researcher at the University of Michigan, whom he identified as his girlfriend. Now, upon searching his belongings, agents found 4 plastic baggies containing fibrous materials infected with the pathogen, as well as a round piece of filtered paper with a series of circles drawn on it concealed in his backpack in a ball of wadded up tissue. According to the criminal complaint, Liu initially denied that the items were his, suggesting someone else had put them into his bag without his knowledge. However, he later admitted that they were different strains of this fungus that he intended to research at the Molecular Plant Microbe Interaction Laboratory at the University of Michigan, where Jian conducts research on similar pathogens. He also acknowledged that he hid the materials when traveling to the United States because he knew Border Patrol agents would confiscate them if they were discovered. Now, the circled filtered paper found in the possession contained 10 separate coded samples, including one that would allow a researcher to propagate live versions of this strain, the complaint stated. Now, Liu told investigators that he had planned to clone the different strains and make more samples if the experiments on the bag materials had failed. He was denied entry into the United States and fast-tracked for removal back to China. While searching one of Liu's cell phones, they found an article in a PDF form titled 2018 Plant Pathogens Warfare Under Changing Climate Conditions. Authorities said the article specifically referenced this particular bacteria as an example of a destructive disease and pathogen for crops, and is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses worldwide each year. The FBI interviewed Jiang at the MPMI laboratory in February, where she first claimed that she only learned of the alleged smuggling scheme when Liu was caught by the CBP, and denied assisting him in his research for this particular fungus. Upon searching Jiang's cell phone, the FBI said it was discovered that there was a document that she signed originating from Jiang University, where Liu conducts research on the pathogen, which included a loyalty pledge to adhere to the 4 basic principles and support the leadership of the Communist Party of China. FBI Special Agent Edward Ni said that in his affidavit that one of the principles Jiang signed her alliance to included upholding Mao Zedong thought of Marxism and Leninism. Investigators said that she signed the documents on January 11th of 2024, just 6 months before Liu allegedly flew to Detroit with the samples in tow. Further investigation into Liu and Jiang's communications indicate that it wasn't the first time that the pair had discussed smuggling the fetid fungus into the U.S. One unearthed exchange from August 12th of 2022 on the Chinese messaging app WeChat reveals that the couple's scheming on how to sneak the seeds past U.S. custom officials, with Liu advising Jiang to hide the materials in her shoe. A day later, Jiang arrived in San Francisco's International Airport on the United Airlines flight from Seoul. Authorities reviewed records from her entry and found that she did not declare she was importing any biological materials. So it also says Rutgers University molecular biologist Dr. Richard Ebright told the Post that this particular strain of fungus causes an estimated loss of 200 to 400 million in U.S. agriculture every year. However, he said that the fungus has been an endemic in the United States for more than 40 years, and that this new introduction of the organism into the United States does not by itself pose a new threat. Importation of this fungus without USDA PPQ 526 permits should not have occurred, he said. However, unless the imported strain was a new strain, having enhanced the transmissibility or virulence. Its importation likely posed no threat to the U.S. agriculture or U.S. security, he added, noting that if Zhang had gone through the proper permitting procedures to obtain the pathogen, it almost certainly would have been approved and arrests would not have occurred. Wow, there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that this was innocent research, or do you think that this was an effort to do an attack on the United States? Regardless, we're hearing that the FBI has taken this very seriously, and also we are hearing that the White House has now done an executive action. President Donald Trump, you can see here, June 4th, 2025, yesterday, restricting the entry of foreign nationals to protect the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. Let me know in the comments, was this a potential terror attack in the works? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, don't forget, take a second, hit that like button for me. Help spread this out further across the YouTube platform. And I see right now in the comments as well, I've got a poll going on. It's been up for 10 minutes. 80% of the room says they are concerned about the threats coming out from China. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage. As I mentioned, we're hearing that Donald Trump has announced a travel ban. Now, this is also related to something else that just recently took place. Let's go ahead and take a look so that way you can see it for yourself.
New from overnight, also signature policy from his first term, now back. President Trump issuing a sweeping new travel ban that covers upwards of 20 countries and partially restricts entry to the U.S. from some of them. He says all comes down to his promise to keep America safe and secure. It's a big day. It's a big story. A lot of news. Dana's got the day off. I'm Bill Hemmer, and our friend from Jackie got on the Acela and came back to New York.
Flight, actually, into Newark.
Okay.
I won't be doing that anytime soon.
Was
again.
it not good?
It was delayed. It was delayed, but I'm here now.
I'm sorry.
Good morning to you, Bill. Good morning to all of you. I'm Jackie Heinrich. This is America's Newsroom. You could call it the Trump travel ban 2.0. This time, the president citing the recent terror attack in Colorado as a key motivating factor, pointing to it as proof of the threat posed by unvetted foreign nationals.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
In moments, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was there for Trump 1.0, he's standing by for the big picture. We'll talk to him coming up.
But we begin with Griff Jenkins, live in Washington, with more on this. Good morning, Griff.
Hey, Jackie, good morning. The travel ban is indeed back, set to take effect on Monday, and President Trump says it was the attack in Boulder that was a driving force behind this decision. Now, let's show you. The list of the 12 banned countries include Afghanistan, Myanmar or Burma, Chad, the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And Jackie, it's notable that Afghanistan, of course home to the Taliban, has a B1, B2 visa overstay rate of nearly 10%. That's the same visa that Boulder attacker Mohammed Salman overstayed before carrying that attack out. Now, dig a little bit deeper into that. Burma's B1, B2 overstay rate is 27%. The Congo's nearly 30%. Haiti's 31%. And Chad's is nearly 50%. In other countries like Iran, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen, who are designated as terrorist havens, the president says they lack adequate screening programs.
Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things.
And the president says the list of banned countries is subject to revision based on improvements in their security programs. And likewise, new countries could be added based on emerging global threats. Now, Democrats already blasting the ban, and we can expect that drumbeat could get louder today. And Jackie, we could see legal challenges popping up, but the White House feels they're on better footing this time around after the Supreme Court upheld his first term travel ban in 2018.
Jackie?
That counts for a lot. All right, Griff Jenkins, thank you.
Mike Pompeo is with us now. Sir, thank you for your time. Your reaction to this news that affects upwards of 19 countries potentially.
Well, good morning, Bill. I think this is a fantastic decision. You can see it's thoughtful, it's rational, it's based on a set of data. And not only how long and how often folks are coming here on a visa and then just simply not leaving, the very thing that resulted in the tragedy in Boulder, Colorado. But we all know these nations. Look through this list. What do they have in common? These are terror havens. These are places without good internal security, very little capacity to help us identify or vet. And so you need a broad-based ban on travel from these places until they fix these internal problem sets and give us a chance to even have a hope that we can identify a potential risk coming into our country. I'm glad that President Trump pursued this. I'm confident he'll prevail in court, and this will keep America safer, Bill.
Mr. Secretary, in the first term, there was a list of countries as well, and the president cited the reason to bring this up again as the attack in Boulder. That suspect was from Egypt. It's not one of the countries on this list. Do you see potentially that list growing to include Egypt, or are there any countries that were not included this time around that you think might get this treatment as well?
Jackie, I'm confident that this list will change over time. We saw the risk during my time as Secretary of State change from these countries as well. And so this is a risk analysis on what we can tell about who's coming in, who's even possible to vet. And so I imagine this list will be both expanded, and I hope some of these countries will get their act together, and those countries can be taken off this list. This isn't about punishing these countries. This is about protecting and securing America. And we can see this threat is real and serious and growing, and something President Biden just simply refused to address.
Yeah, many folks may forget, we actually took the audio arguments from inside the courtroom in California when the first quote-unquote Muslim ban happened back in the first term. U.S. Supreme Court ultimately ruled this. 2018, the president has lawfully exercised the broad discretion granted to him to suspend the entry of aliens into the United States. The sole prerequisite set forth is that the president finds that the entry of the covered aliens would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. Griff Jenkins mentioned this. He said there will be court challenges, and on likelihood, David Axelrod was on that last night on CNN.
I'm sure there are going to be challenges to it, and we'll see. The thing about it is that there's so many fires being set all over the place that it's not going to get the same attention that the travel ban did in the first place. And they do have a responsibility to act responsibly in terms of who comes into the country. But we'll see where this all shakes out.
Okay, stand by for more on that. Meanwhile, there's another significant story that broke here this week, and that's 2 Chinese nationals arrested in Detroit. What they were bringing in appeared to be up to no good, and it appears also that Customs and Border Patrol was on the lookout for these 2. They've been arrested. They'll be in court in a matter of hours. Your reaction to what is happening there, sir?
Do you have $100? Because I'm looking for 2,000 believers who are willing to trade.
Bill, I've been talking for years, and in the first Trump administration, we worked on the problem of the Chinese Communist Party, what I call inside the gates, and not the problems in the Pacific or in Taiwan, but right here at home. We shuttered the consulate in Houston, and what you saw happen with these 2 trying to bring potential terrorist agriculture into our country is something that is a very real challenge for the FBI to keep its hands on. I think they did great work here. I hope that this is not just the tip of the iceberg and that there aren't others that did this and we haven't found them yet. But this risk that the Chinese Communist Party is working not only to bring fentanyl into our country, to bring agri-terrorism or do something that looks more akin to what we saw in Ukraine or with the pagers, those are things the Chinese Communist Party is highly capable of doing. And we need to make sure that we are putting all of our intelligence assets and all of our security assets aimed at protecting America from the Chinese Communist Party's efforts to take us on here at home.
Yeah, for those who might not be aware of what these 2 are accused of, they were apparently bringing in some sort of pathogen that would be capable of wiping out crops. Is this a pervasive problem? I mean, agro-terrorism is not a word that we usually see on papers.
This threat, Jackie, and the threat from what I'll call more broadly bioterrorism is something that the first Trump administration worked on. I'm confident this one is as well. These bio risks are very real. Look, we saw what happened to hens and laying hens and our ability to deliver eggs to the market. When when you can introduce injury and risk into the food supply chain, you can do real harm. And we saw with what happened in the Wuhan lab. We know that the Chinese Communist Party is working on many, many bioagents, and some of them I am confident they're working to figure out how they can deploy in a way that impacts the United States in a way that benefits them and puts real risk on the United States.
What's really interesting is the affidavit, and reading some of the text messages between the two. It appears that this was not the first time they tried this. We'll find out more within hours. Mike Pompeo, thank you for coming on today.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. And they shared the breaking news coming out about these Chinese nationalists that were trying to damage the U.S. food supply, putting Americans at serious risk. And again, you can see the headlines coming out in the last 48 hours on this. FBI director, China targets our food supplies. Patel sounds the alarm as Chinese nationals charged with smuggling agro-terrorism agent into the United States. This is a direct threat, they are saying. Now, in addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some more footage that's going to be covering this. And we're going to be taking a look at Sean Hannity here with Dan Bongino. And he is saying that right now, foreign nationalists coming to the United States is the greatest threat to our nation. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage so you can see it for yourself.
Anyway, joining us now, longtime friend of the program. Now he's the deputy director of the FBI. I probably have to refer to him as Sir. Dan Bongino is with us. We've been friends a long time, Dan. Everybody knows it. I have talked to a lot of people. I have known you for years. I've known Cash for years. I've known Pam Bondi for years, decades, as a matter of fact. And I know you all to be honorable people. My sources have repeatedly told me that they can barely sleep at night, that if the average American knew how bad it was, they'd be shocked to their inner core. Is that true?
Yeah. By the way, if you call me sir, I'll start looking for my dad. So let's not start that anytime soon, Sean. But I appreciate it. I'm just trying to lighten it up because your question's so serious. Yeah. But the premise of your question is 100% accurate. The threat picture now for the United States is dramatic, and I really appreciate we have a president, an attorney general, and FBI director who take those threats seriously. I mean, you name it, Sean. You ask me what's the biggest threat right now. People say, well, what keeps you up at night? Well, the answer is I'd never sleep if I thought about this stuff all the time, but it all keeps me up at night. The drone threat. This is a perilous, acute threat. It's not here tomorrow. It's here today. Everybody saw what happened in Russia. It's only a matter of time if we don't take action, which I promise you, the Attorney General and the Director and I are taking action on this threat. It is here right now. You've got the threat of AI, alignment there. You've got the threat of China, infiltration into our systems. It's been publicly reported. You've seen it. When you get the President's Daily Brief every morning, like the Director and I do for this half-an-hour block we get, it's the first thing we do. You know, Sean, you walk out of there and you're like, somebody go get me a cup of coffee. I mean, this is really, I need a coffee relaxes me a little bit because you go out of there, your blood pressure's through the roof. It's so many different things to action. And one last thing, when you combine that with the Director and our priority, which is reform. Without reform, we're not going to have anything because the American people won't trust us. They will not trust us. And after what happened, I don't blame them for that mistrust. You combine that and layer it on. We got a big job, but the Director and I are glad we're doing it.
All right, let me go back. You talk about the drone threat. You talk about the China threat. I mentioned we have known terrorists in the country. We have Iranian assassination squads in the country, cartel members in the country, murderers, rapists, and gang members, and drug dealers. That's a pretty long laundry list. You know, I've been watching, and I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I see chatter. And where is the Epstein files? You have been very clear that there's going to be video evidence that proves that Epstein killed himself. And I've known you long enough. If you say it, I believe you. And I know it'll be forthcoming. But when you have to prioritize I mean, when I looked at the news today, 1 million manpower hours on illegal immigrants alone, that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of time. So for people that might want answers like, and by the way, I'm one of them. I want the Epstein files, the MLK files, RFK, JFK files. But explain the priority since you have gotten in this position, and Cash has gotten in his position, and Pam has gotten in her position, and maybe why this didn't go as quickly as some people anticipated.
Well, I lost you a little bit, but I assume you can hear me, so I'm just going to answer your question.
I can hear you, yeah.
There has been, let me get to this first. I had a graduation ceremony this morning down in Quantico with a class of new agents, and I looked every one of them in the eye, shook their hands. I said, listen, you're going to do this for us. You're going to protect the homeland, and you're going to go bring me bad guys. You understand? I said, there's no one coming to save us. The Marvel Avengers ain't coming. It is us. We are in charge. We have the counterterrorism portfolio. This president and this attorney general, they have a different view than we've had in the past of the FBI. This is very important. Your audience understands this. The FBI in the past focused on large enterprise cases. You know, the Al Capone, John Gotti, KSM, Al-Qaeda types. And we are still and always going to do that. But there's a parallel track. This president also sees this border problem as a solvable problem. Now, think about this, Sean. That never happens in police science and criminology. No one solves murder. You solve a murder. No one saw murder happen, sadly. The president has a different view of this border problem. He said, we are going to fix this for good. We're sealing it shut. Everybody here is out. We are going to get rid of you if you are here illegally. And if you're here illegally to commit a crime, you're going first. We're giving you about 5 minutes to cooperate. If you don't have any information, we're going to use every tool we have, Title VIII and every other one, to get you the hell out of the country. You're not going to be here to commit crime. It is a really revolutionary view. It's almost like national level broken windows policing. That collapse in the murder rate.
Clear.
Thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that it happened. That collapse in the murder rate. We are on pace, Sean, for the lowest murder rate ever. Is not an accident. Here's what's happening. When this small pocket of people, maybe less than 5% of the population, is committing the overwhelming majority of crimes, and you get rid of a good portion of them, they're not here to commit crimes. And that's why you're seeing this collapse in the murder rate, and I think you're going to see a subsequent collapse in the crime rate as well when Cash and I are done this year.
All right, Dan, can you hear me okay now? We're back? We're good? I'm not sure if Dan Bongino can hear me.
So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, as we saw him say that the Trump administration has taken an entirely different approach right now, just shipping them out, saying we're not going to allow this, and anybody that's here that is a foreign nationalist that could be committing these crimes, could be doing agro-terrorism against our food supplies, ship them out. And if you like the sound of that, drop a 47 in the comments, and don't forget to take a second to hit that like button. But you heard him say that right now, one of the things that keeps him up at night, the biggest threats that they see, is all of these foreign nationalists against the United States. And there are the threats of potential terror attacks on our U.S. soil, of infrastructure attacks, and we're hearing attacks on food supply as well. And I've shared with you that the FBI for quite some time has been saying that they are anticipating attacks on infrastructure systems like water supply, transportation, communication, on ports. We've heard warnings about electrical power grids going down. So there is an assortment of these that they are preparing for. And this is coming as we are now hearing that in the last 48 hours, they have said that China has targeted our U.S. food supply with agro-terrorism. Let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage. Like I said, this has been coming out in the past 48 hours. Let's take a look at the latest updates.
The FBI now says 2 Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potentially toxic fungus that could ravage crops in the United States. They were trying to bring those to the homeland. Now, one of those suspects is in custody, will appear in a federal courtroom tomorrow at 1 p.m. The other is in China after he was denied entry into the U.S. while trying to smuggle in that biological pathogen last year. Really interesting details coming up. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. Here's my co-host, Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Laura Trump, host of My View with Laura Trump. Kayleigh McGee-White, Fox News contributor, and Ari Fleischer, Fox News contributor and former White House press secretary. Well, the FBI warning Americans that our food supply may be the target of attacks from China. Here's a photo of the fungus found at the Detroit airport last year. It was found in 4 plastic baggies. It was stashed into wads of tissue paper. And authorities say that the toxins cause, quote, vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in both humans and livestock. What were they doing with this? Why were they trying to bring this into our country? Now, according to a U.S. Attorney's office in Michigan, the 34-year-old Chinese researcher who works at the University of Michigan intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew that the restrictions on importing them existed. The professor claims he had hoped to do further research on the fungus at his University of Michigan.
Wenn Sie täglich spazieren gehen und keine Ergebnisse sehen, gehen Sie einfach nicht genug.
Lab. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is sobering. It's a reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. Smuggling a known agro-terrorism agent into the U.S. is not just a violation of law, it's a direct threat to national security." Now, the details here are chilling. I have the complaint here. Carrier Bond pulled out some really interesting details, Emily. So listen to this. Juan is the woman. There was the boyfriend and girlfriend. So Juan's the woman. The FBI has evidence that she had done this before. She had worked with someone else to smuggle in the same pathogen. She gave the other person detailed instructions on how to smuggle it in a book and said there are usually no problems. Rest assured, I have mailed these before. So you wonder how many times she's done this. And then she lied on her visa, saying she was studying a topic distinct from the use of this pathogen. This raises all kinds of questions about subterfuge and frequency.
Absolutely. Look, this is absolutely frightening. And most frightening is how under the prior administration, this stuff was just swept under the rug in terms of the perceived and actual threat. Now, we know under the Trump first administration that Secretary of State Pompeo deployed a maximum pressure against China in all of those arenas. He saw and articulated that the threats to our intellectual property, our college campuses, our physical military bases, and so much more was profound and real. And if you look at the DOJ history of prosecutions and arrests, it was sky high because they were deploying resources toward this articulated threat. Cut to the Biden administration, and I guess everything's awesome. And now we're seeing the fruits of that investment by the CCP. This is on the heels as well of University of Michigan, other students that were arrested and prosecuted for counter surveillance, and so much more. So look, this dovetails in with the topic as well of the visas and the college campuses of the students, right? And over 27% of foreign students being from China. And there's the direct correlation is obviously not China related. It's CCP related. And the fact that this administration now sees this for what it is and is dedicated to preventing this kind of thing is so relieving. But we have to know that the seeds have been planted and really buried deep under the prior administration. So for me, this is one in what is likely the tip of the iceberg.
I think you're right. You know, sadly, Laura, when you look at this woman's background, she got Chinese government funding for her work. And not only that, some of the information that she had on her said there was membership and loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, I think the overall takeaway is something that we've heard Donald Trump talk about for a long time. I think, you look at China, you look at the CCP. This is our greatest geopolitical foe, I think, in the entire world. I did an interview for my show this weekend with John Radcliffe, the CIA director. He said they are specifically looking and putting so much investment in China because they are such a big threat. When I look at this and I think about what it says there, that it could take out livestock, that it could take out all of our food supply, it could cause reproductive issues for humans. This is an overall push, I believe, from the CCP to try and take down the United States of America. There's a book called The 100-Year Marathon, and it details the fact that China has in the background been waging this kind of silent war that most Americans don't know about to try and usurp America as a superpower of the world. This seems like another step in that direction. Look at TikTok in China. These kids are all learning how to play, the cello, the violin. They're doing things to improve themselves. Look at it in America. We're teaching our kids to twerk. Look at the education between China and America. They have surpassed our American students long ago. When you look at this, you look at China buying up farmland, and then I look at something like this, to me it says this is another step in China trying to take over America as a superpower.
Yeah, and John Radcliffe, the perfect person to talk to, he was a part of the first Trump administration when they were taking on Confucius Institutes on college campuses. Right. So they've been on this for a long time. Ari, the most chilling detail of this 25-page complaint is this. There's an interesting WeChat exchange between this young woman and her boyfriend. 1 week before she smuggled the pathogen into the United States, or he did, he told his girlfriend, once this is done, everything else will be easy, to which she replied, My seedlings are not usable yet. You could read that any which way, but it's a chilling way to read it when you compound it with the symptoms that Laura mentioned, reproductive birth defects, if this got out into the U.S. population.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more from law enforcement when they get into the details of this today. How deep does this go? What do they suspect? But what this takes me back to is after September 11th. After September 11th, the CIA concluded, and they said to the White House, that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when there will be a second attack. And the second attack that we feared the most and prepared the hardest to prevent was a biological attack, because that can cause the greatest destruction. And don't forget, we're dealing with a China that regularly hacks and infiltrates America's industrial infrastructure. They have made it a state business to get inside American systems, to disrupt them, to steal from us, to take, to harm us, not to mention what they've done with fentanyl to poison us. This is the China we deal with. And if this does turn out to be, if the investigators say, if the Department of Justice reveals that this does appear to be tied to a biological attack, I don't know what the next step has to be with China, because that's an act of war. And we've got to be very cautious. I don't want to overplay this, but as you pointed out, Emily, this is frightening. If they're going to biologically mess with our food supply, we cannot sit back and take this.
No, you have to act, and I'm confident the commander-in-chief would act in an appropriate fashion. You know, Kaylee, when you look at this and the events of this week, and then you look at the policies of the Trump administration, President Trump said, I want to look at visas on college campuses with these individuals who are protesting. And then we get that horrific attack where 8 Jewish men and women are burned because of their religion, a guy who overstayed his visa. Then you had Marco Rubio Thursday say, we're going to look at China visas too. And then you get this. I mean, they've been ahead of the ball game here. And if there's not a footnote to substantiate the policies they're making, if there's not a better one than this, I don't know what will convince people.
Well, and Ari asked what the next step is. The next step is to revoke every single Chinese student visa. Keep in mind, this is the second national security-related incident involving a Chinese visa that we've learned about this week. There was another report earlier this week that a student in the University of Michigan, another Chinese national, fled the country after illegally voting in Michigan's election in November. Yeah, right. And he apparently voluntarily released his passport before doing so. But this is a pattern of behavior. And we need to keep in mind that China has a law requiring every single one of its citizens to spy on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. You see this with some of the details that were revealed in this affidavit, where this researcher was still receiving funding from the Chinese Communist Party to conduct research in the United States. And they are exploiting our visa program to do that. We are essentially holding open the front door to allow our greatest adversary to flood our country with people who are spying on us and undermining our national security. And you mentioned subterfuge, but what the Chinese government does in public is just as revealing. Let's remember last year, a Chinese state-run media outlet ran an editorial endorsing the pro-Hamas protests on U.S. college campuses because they know that if they target our higher education system and if they target my generation in particular, they can create division in our country, and that is exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, without question.
Hey, everyone.
There you have it, you guys. Wow. And let me know your thoughts. I actually had a poll going on in the comments asking if this is an act of war, to which 90% of the room is saying yes. And we literally just heard them say here in this exclusive interview that they were saying that, or not interview, but as they were talking about everything, that we heard that one individual come out and say, this is very concerning because this is an act of war. This is an attack on our U.S. food supply, and we've been hearing the warnings that China wants to hit our critical infrastructure systems. And he said that this is an act of war, and this is very concerning. Now, for quite some time, we have been hearing these warnings from Gordon Chang, who has been letting us know that China is preparing to attack the United States in conjunction with Taiwan. So China is preparing for war with Taiwan, knowing that the United States is an ally of Taiwan. They are also preparing to attack the U.S. as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at some video footage that came out with this, as well as he is letting us know that these are biological weapons that China is planning to use to attack the United States.
Today, a bail hearing set for one of the Chinese nationals suspected of smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the U.S., considered a potential agro-terrorism weapon. Her partner is believed to still be in China, as the couple has been charged with conspiracy, smuggling, and fraud. Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang joins me now. Gordon, the suspect is described as a, quote, Communist Party loyalist and researcher at the University of Michigan. To me, those words should never be in the same sentence. Why are American universities harboring the enemy often throughout our nation in the name of research?
Because the universities make a lot of money from China, through students, through other ways, contributions. And that's why we have these very disturbing ties between American institutions of higher learning and China. And we need to break that, because obviously the dangers are there, as we see with this fungus case.
For every one of these foreign agents that we catch, Gordon, how many more are roaming among us and, quite frankly, clearly trying to destroy us from within?
There's so many, and it's not just the researchers. Remember, there are Chinese consular officials and Ministry of State Security agents on our soil, and they've been operating in ways that violate our laws and that are inconsistent with the Vienna Convention. But the story here is that this has been going on for a very long time, Todd. We know what's going on. We have the means to stop it, so it's on us. And that's why it's important to break these connections now, to show China that we will no longer tolerate this behavior.
I mean, so much of this, yes, can be blamed on President Biden and his open border policies. But to your point, this was happening well before that. Well before Joe Biden opened up our borders to every nation. And so the fact of the matter is we haven't stopped it still. And that makes no sense, because we know what's happening. We've heard the warnings from you over years, decades even. It's disturbing that it hasn't been stopped. Meantime, I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump and Xi Jinping, the phone call between them is expected this week. But a fundamental question to you, Gordon, should we even be having talks with the country that is actively trying to attack us like we just discussed?
Clearly not. This case in the University of Michigan, this was a biological weapons attack on the United States, an attempt to blight our agriculture, specifically barley, grain, rice, all the rest of it. And this has been going on for at least a half decade, because in 2020, Americans in all 50 states received from China unsolicited seeds, and that's an attempt to plant these invasive species. So first of all, this woman shouldn't get bail at all. She should be sent to Guantanamo. But the point here is that we shouldn't be talking to a regime that is actively taking our country down. And this is not just the fungus. This is fentanyl. This is COVID. This is all the rest of it. This has to stop.
I think you make an important point. But that said, it does appear that there will be trade talks. My question for you is, will they lead to an agreement? And if they do lead to an agreement, will Xi Jinping and China honor that agreement?
Yeah, the Chinese are stalling. They want more time beyond the 90-day pause that was declared on May 12th. China always does this. Yeah, there might be agreement eventually if we cave in. But no, there shouldn't be an agreement. And I don't think Xi Jinping is going to honor it. He's lost a lot of influence and control recently. He may not have the authority to deal, because there are even rumors that he might be deposed this summer. I actually don't think that's the case, but nonetheless, we know that there are a lot of civilian and military officials at the top of the Communist Party that don't want him exercising any sort of power.
Gordon Chang, a clear-minded and important analysis for us this morning. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
There you have it, you guys. That was Gordon Chang issuing the warnings coming regarding China and attacks on the United States. And we've heard him talk about potential infrastructure attacks. We also had the drones before. He was saying he suspected China had a hand in that. And then we're also hearing now as well that they are saying that this bio attack, this agro-terrorism against the United States, this attempt, he is saying that China is just ramping up for attacks against the United States as they prepare for war with Taiwan, which we're hearing will likely be coming by the year 2027. So they're saying that war with China is right around the corner. And as I mentioned, with all of this unfolding, we're also seeing travel bans taking place. This coming out yesterday, Donald Trump announcing that executive action to put a ban on certain foreign nationalists from coming into the United States. And if you're glad to hear that, drop a 47 in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that like button. Literally just need one more like to have 1,000 likes while we're live. Really helps out the channel a ton. I appreciate it. And also, to stay up to date, hit that subscribe button. If you missed my video yesterday, you might want to check it out, as we received nuclear warnings coming out. Iran directly warning the United States as the nuclear deals have fallen apart with the Middle East, and also phone calls going on with Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump that led to Donald Trump coming out and saying it does not look like there is going to be a ceasefire peace agreement in the near future, even though he gave that 2-week ultimatum. So there is a lot going on right now. I'll continue to keep you up to date on everything here on the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Drop those 47s for support for Donald Trump and his policies. And I will continue to keep you up to date as more rolls out. And again, thank you to today's video sponsor, American Financing. They save the average person $800 a month. They can delay your mortgage payment by 2 months. So if you're in some sort of financial struggle right now, you might want to give them a call, see what they can do for you. You can see the number 866-890-7706. Go to americanfinancing.net/Steve Ram or scan the QR code on the screen. They can help you out. Thank you for making that available to my viewing audience today. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will catch you in the next one and keep you up to speed on everything. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.